Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Shiur. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us. And we'd like to start also with thanking the sponsors this week. I want to name them out of Hakarat Atov. And they are Joe and Laura Meshali, Armando Mar Youssef, Sylvie Benitach, Max and Louise Asayag, Mamayim Papadito, Eric and Arona Benchetreat, and Tito Isaac Benatar. It's for Refuah Shlema Ram Ben Saragito, Refuah Shlema Ephraim Ben Miriam, and all the nachalot that we are commemorating today. Bezrat Hashem, this Limud Torah that we're going to do together will be the greatest zchut that we can have in the zchut of these sponsors and the zchut of those listening to the shiur. We thank you. I also wanted to point out that I noticed that the views on the shiur have gone down, and I'm not offended by that. That's okay. But if anybody has suggestions on what we should talk about, any topics that you want to hear more about, I can look into that, do my research, and give you, Bezrat Hashem, a good shiur on that so that we can get the ratings up a little bit. But I do appreciate all those who come to listen to the shiur on a weekly basis, Bezrat Hashem. At the end of this week's parasha, Ba'alotcha, we have the story of Miriam and Aharon, who unfortunately spoke Lashon Hara about their brother Moshe Rabbeinu. And we know that specifically Miriam was punished for this act of Lashon Hara. She was turned into a mitzorah. Mitzorah in English is a leper. It's a certain disease given by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It involves spots on the skin or on the clothing or on the home. And it is given to somebody who speaks Lashon Hara, who speaks badly about somebody else. And the Torah tells us, Zachor et asher asa Hashem Elokecha leMiriam. You have to remember what Hashem did to Miriam. When she spoke Lashon Hara, Hashem gave her tzaraat. And we have a mitzvah, according to the Rishonim, we have a mitzvah to remember this episode. We have a special mitzvah that every day, there's 10 things we have to remember every day. One of the 10 things is this story of how Miriam spoke Lashon Hara to her brother, about her brother Moshe, and she got punished for that with tzaraat. And so we'd like to maybe, because we have this mitzvah, try to understand a little bit more what exactly is this mitzvah, to remember the story of Miriam. What are we supposed to remember? And we have to try to glean as much as possible from that episode. Now, the first thing we have to point out is actually something that occurs in the next week's parasha, which is Shlach Lecha, where right after the story of Miriam that we just described is the episode of the Miraglim, the spies. Moshe Rabbeinu sent spies to scout out Eretz Yisrael. They were about to enter Eretz Yisrael. They wanted to see if the land was good. And they came back with negative reports about Eretz Yisrael, unfortunately, which it boils down to speaking Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael. So they got punished for that. And the Chachamim tell us why is the parasha of the Meraglim right next to the story of Miriam. And Chachamim tell us the fish laktal iske diba shedibra be'achia. Miriam got punished because she spoke Lashon Hara about her brother Moshe Rabbeinu. U'reshaim halalu, and these spies, these reshaim, ra'u, they saw exactly what happened, and they did not take musar. They didn't get the message. They didn't see that when you speak Lashon Hara, whether it's about a person, whether it's about Eretz Yisrael, you get punished for that. They didn't get the message. And therefore, the Torah puts these two episodes together. Now, the purpose of all punishment is not because Hashem is a villain, not because Hashem is looking to hurt us and to threaten us, and He wants a power trip, chas v'shalom. That's not what happens. The purpose of punishments is because we are supposed to use those punishments in order to reflect on our actions. Everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu does, whether it's good or whether it's not so good, is what's called midah keneged midah, as the Mishnah in Sotah says, b'midah she'adam moded, kach modedin lo. Just as a person behaves, that is how Shamayim behaves with that person. So any punishment, any onish that we receive in this life is going to be just a direct reflection, a mirror on what we did. So the punishment that Miriam got was for speaking Lashon Hara, tzarat. The Meraglim saw that, and they did not take the lesson, so they got the same punishment. They also got punished for Lashon Hara. Their punishment was a little bit different, but the purpose of punishment is not that we should cry, not that we should complain, Not that we should say our Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't exist, chas v'shalom, and that he's out to get me and I don't deserve this. The point is that we did something. We're not always perfect, and that's okay. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to teach us a lesson. Lachum musar, we have to take the message. We have to see what Hashem is trying to tell us all the time. That is the purpose of punishment, and that is the mistake that the Meraglim made. They did not learn from the story of Miriam. Now, it is difficult for a person by human nature, and it's totally normal and acceptable that it's hard for us to take the messages. It's hard for us to see our own faults, and it's hard to say, well, HaKadosh Baruch Hu punished me, that must mean I did something wrong. And the nature of the punishment is meant to indicate what I did wrong. It's very, very difficult for us to see it. I see here a story about a great Rabbanit, the wife of one of the Gedolei Ador, the biggest rabbis of the generation. And the story goes that she was looking for a shidduch for her daughter, a husband for her daughter to marry. And there was a boy that was suggested that he was an outstanding boy. And this boy ended up becoming one of the great rabbis of the generation. But the boy did not marry her daughter. Why not? Because the Rabbanit decided that this shidduch should not go ahead because the boy had a little bit of a limp. So she didn't really like the limp in his leg, and so she rejected the shidduch. And one time, not long after, she was once bringing a cup of milk to her husband, who was very weak. The Rabbanit was bringing this to her husband. He was in bed, and she brought him some milk. And while she was walking towards him, she tripped and broke her leg. Now, in our minds, we're thinking, well, obviously, her leg broke, midah keneged midah, commensurate to the averah that she did. She broke off the shidduch because the boy had a limp, so she broke her leg. But the Rabbanit did not react that way. And even though she was a very great person, she said to herself, you know why I broke my leg? Because I brought my husband something to drink before he prayed shachrit. We're not allowed to eat or drink before praying shachrit. And she brought him this cup of milk. It was before shachrit. And she failed to see the message that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was sending her, even though this was a very great person. But she was not aware that obviously she broke her leg because she broke off the shidduch, since the guy had a limp. It was obvious for us to see, but it was not obvious for her to see. It's very difficult. Ein adam ro'eh nigei atzmo. A person never ever sees his own faults. That's the default. We don't see our own faults. Default. And therefore, this Rabbanit didn't see it either, even though she was a very great person. However, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does a chesed with us that because He knows it's difficult for us to see our own downfalls, He allows us to take musar from other people getting punished. Now, it's not always pleasant to see, and we don't take pride in it. But we do see that other Jews get punished. We do see this person suffers in this way or another. This person's sick. And we can look at that person as an outsider. We don't have to tell the person. If he's not going to listen, he's not going to appreciate it. We don't have to share it with anybody in particular. Just between us and ourselves, we can say, well, I see that person, he lost his eyesight or he lost his hearing, maybe because he was listening to inappropriate things. He was listening to Lashon Hara. Maybe he was looking at something bad. He was watching the wrong movies. And so we can take musar. And the Meraglim were supposed to also take musar from Miriam. They were not able to see their own faults, but they could have at least seen the faults of Miriam. They could have at least seen that she spoke Lashon Hara and she got punished in this way. And they could have taken the message, but they chose not to. They did not. Because the message for us is HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't punish because He wants to be evil. HaKadosh Baruch Hu punishes because He wants to teach the person He's punishing a lesson, as well as the entire world. Everybody who's witnessing this punishment is also supposed to take a lesson. If you can't see your own faults, at least see somebody else's faults. There is a practical purpose. A lot of people are very good at judging other people, and that has a place. There is a place for that. Look at what that other person did wrong. Look at the punishments and the life that he lives and all the negative in his life, and we can take that and apply it to ourselves. Maybe I'm doing the same thing as him. Maybe I should not do that, because you see what happens when you behave in such a manner. That's one lesson we can learn from Miriam. Another lesson is ben adam lechavero, between a man and his friend. The Chachamim say, the pasuk tells us again, Zachor et asher asa Hashem Elokecha leMiriam, Remember what Hashem did to Miriam. B'derech betzetchem mimitzrayim. When you were on the way, when you were leaving Mitzrayim. The Chachamim tell us, B'derech, what does that mean on the way? B'shat tiruvchem. B'derech means it has a connotation of when you're a little bit bothered. It's a little bit, when you're inconvenienced, when it's a difficult time in life. And b'tzetchem b'mitzrayim b'shat geulatchem, when you left Mitzrayim, in the time of redemption, in the time of Geulah, in a positive and a happy time. Miriam was punished in the midst of both of these scenarios. At the same time, it was a very happy situation. We were just leaving Mitzrayim. It was also a very stressful one. We were in the Midbar, in the desert. A lot of difficulties. They didn't have water. They didn't have enough food. A lot to complain about. So it was a bittersweet occasion, this Yetziat Mitzrayim, leaving Mitzrayim and spending time in the Midbar. And what the Chachamim are trying to teach us over there is that Miriam got punished for what she did despite these circumstances. Even though it was a very hard time for Miriam and for the rest of the Jewish people, and maybe we would have said, well, Hashem, cut us a break a little bit, cut us some slack. We're in the Midbar, it's very hot, we have little children. This is, we don't need this now for someone to be punished like this, to get sarat. It's a very difficult sickness. But still, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not give up. Hashem said, I must teach you this lesson, and you must receive a punishment for this infraction that you did. And similarly, in a happy time, one might say, Hashem, don't ruin this happy moment. We just left Mitzrayim. This is what we've been waiting for. Let us enjoy this time. Let us leave Mitzrayim. Let us just revel in the moment. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu again says, no, because it's more important that we should learn the lesson of Miriam, that we should get the musar, get that lesson, that message that I'm trying to send you. When you do something wrong, there is a way to fix it. There's a way to improve yourself. It doesn't matter what the situation is right now. This is the most important thing for the moment. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided. Now, we see from here something very, very important and something very difficult to understand, and we might not even understand it at all. But we're going to say it anyways. We see here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give a punishment regardless of whether or not we deserve that punishment. How do we see that? We see it from a Gemara. The Gemara in Ketuvot tells us a story about a man named Rav Rachumi. Rav Rachumi used to learn in a yeshiva away from home. This was a married man. And his minhag was to come home every Erev Yom Kippur. Every Erev Yom Kippur, he would come home and see his wife. His wife waited for him every year to see him on Erev Yom Kippur. It was the happiest day of her life. And one day, it was Erev Yom Kippur, and he was in the yeshiva, and he was set to come home, and somebody stopped him and asked him a question. And he continued in learning. It went on for a little while. And his wife was waiting, tapping her feet, waiting for her husband to come home. Maybe he'll come now, maybe now. And he didn't come. And she felt sad, and one tear fell from her eye. One tear fell from her eye. Rav Rachumi, in that moment that the tear fell from her eye, was sitting on an upper level. The floor gave way beneath him. The floor cracked, and he fell, and he died. Rav Rachumi died because his wife cried. Now, he didn't intend on hurting his wife. That wasn't what he wanted. He didn't want to make her cry. But because she cried on his account, it was because of him that she cried. So Rav Rachumi had to be punished for that. He had to be punished for that. And even more incredible is a Gemara in Bava Kama. This is an incredible, incredible Gemara. And you see how deep HaKadosh Baruch Hu's judgment is from this Gemara. Rav Yochanan Gavra Savahaba. Rabbi Yochanan was an elderly man. Umasreche Givineh. And the Gemara tells us that, as is the way with some elderly men, his eyebrows were very bushy. He had a lot of hair, and they were covering his eyes. Amar lahu, so he told his students, Dalu li einai, ve'achzieh, please remove the eyebrows, the hairs from my eyes, so I can see. He wanted to see somebody named Rav Kahana. He wanted to see the face of Rav Kahana. Chaza de parte sifavate. Now, Rav Kahana had a condition. I don't know if he was born with it or it happened subsequently, that there was a little dent in his mouth. So it always looked like Rav Kahana was smirking, like this, like maybe the Batman and Joker. So the Rav Kahana looked like that, and Rav Yochanan saw Rav Kahana. He saw his face after his eyebrows were lifted, and Rav Yochanan felt sad. He felt that Rav Kahana was laughing at him. Rav Kahana was making fun of him. Chalash da'ate v'nach nafshei. Rav Kahana, the Gemara tells us that because of this, Rav Kahana passed away. Rav Kahana died. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to punish Rav Kahana, even though he did absolutely nothing wrong. The other story, you could say maybe he should have come home quicker. He should have realized his wife was waiting for him, perhaps. Rav Kahana did not do anything. Rav Kahana was born with this condition, for all we know. It was a part of his face. But Rav Yochanan felt upset and disheartened because of that, on account of Rav Kahana. So Rav Kahana had to be punished for that. So even though the situation doesn't make sense, and even though we have every reason in the world to say, why punish this person? Why should this person receive an onesh right now? It's a stressful time. It's a happy time. The guy was just a few minutes late. There was only one tear. He was born with this condition. That's how his face looks. What do you want from this guy? But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not mevater. He does not give up. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to improve, no matter what the cost. And the lesson will be taught. That is the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs his world. And this is something very important that we can learn from the story of Miriam. The way that we behave towards people, even if we have good intentions and we mean the very best, and genuinely we do, but we end up hurting, we make a comment that maybe in the moment they'll laugh, but when they go home, maybe they won't be so happy. They'll share with their wife, so-and-so said this at the Kiddush, and he made me a little bit hurt. And all these kinds of things can happen. Just the very smallest detail can rub a person the wrong way. We have to be extremely careful when it comes to Ben Adam Lechavero. When it comes to Ben Adam Lemakom, other mitzvot, Shabbat, when it comes to kashrut, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, I'm not going to say forgiving, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is patient. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is patient. People are not patient. We are not Hashem. We don't have that level of tolerance. And because people are so impatient, therefore the punishment is more severe, and the punishment will come under any circumstance. This is something we have to learn from the story of Miriam, to be extremely careful and extremely cautious when it comes to Ben Adam Lechavero. I want to thank everybody again for listening and the sponsors, and we'll see you next week, Bezrat Hashem. Take care.